Kash Patel did an interview on Baier, and I'm, again, not trying to be an armchair quarterback, not trying to be a backseat driver or the Monday morning quarterback, but I have half a brain, and sometimes that half a brain works mildly well. And if I have the thought and if I have the reaction, I think it's relatively safe to conclude many other people out there are going to have a similar reaction. Kash Patel did an interview with Baier, and he is just, I don't know if it's incapable of providing clear answers that actually offer something of value, or he's actually just mastered the skill of verbal diarrhea that doesn't actually answer anything meaningfully. If you had a quarter for every time he said, we're doing things according to the facts and the law, you'd be rich by now. And then the question is going to be, if any answer is ever going to be is we're doing everything according to the facts and the law, I mean, okay, great. Interviews have become utterly useless. And he's answering questions on the most important issues of all time, in my view. And these are the types of answers that he's given. This one was coming from Gunter Eagleman. Baier just pressed FBI Director Kash Patel on the lingering mystery about the Butler shooter. Quote, where were the cell phones? Where were the cell phones? Why don't we know who he was talking to? What exactly happened? I feel like we haven't gotten the whole picture about Butler. You and me both, Brett.
Provide support.
All right, well, let me take you to a different shooter, and that is the Butler shooter. I asked you about this at Quantico. Take a listen. Will we know a lot more about him? Is there more to know?
I don't know that there's more to know, but you're going to know everything we know. And we don't feel that the American people have been given the information they need on that. And we're digging through the files and we're getting them a more robust picture of what happened.
So that was May 2025. I mean, I don't think we, the public, have a more robust picture of that shooter.
Well, I think that's...
Let me pause it even before Kash gets into it. I don't think we have a more robust picture of that shooter. We don't. And not only do we not, the bona fide, call them journalists. You might not like Tucker Carlson at this point in time. He's still a journalist. He's an independent journalist, and some of his work is better than others. His interview with Larry Sinclair, I think, was very weak. His interview with George Stephanopoulos' sister, I think, was very weak. That does not mean he's not a journalist, and it doesn't mean that all of his work is weak. Some of his work is stronger than others. And when he put out that expose on, I forget his first name, Crooks, and the videos that had not yet been disclosed, and the social media footprint that we were told didn't exist, and instead of addressing it, they went out on the offense and literally created an FBI response X handle to go and attack Tucker Carlson for disclosing to the public what nobody else had seen up until that point, except Miranda Devine and Brianna Morello, also two fantastic journalists who had access to the same dossier of information that we were told didn't exist, that in fact actually existed. Listen to the answer.
Shooter.
Well, I think that's an unfair supposition. We, the FBI, have put out all the information that we possibly and legally can.
Possibly and legally can. So take out the possibly, because it's not true anymore, that you legally can. Okay, fine. So are you telling us that there was information that you didn't put out because you couldn't, that has since come out now, that sort of undermines or contradicts statements that were made by the prior FBI and even potentially by this FBI early on?
While protecting any ongoing matters that are unrelated.
But he's dead.
Hold on. So they're protecting ongoing matters that are unrelated? I'm going to play this again. I'm going to shut my big mouth because it's so frustrating to listen to this. They're protecting ongoing matters that are unrelated. I'm sorry, Mr. Patel. What the hell does that mean? You're protecting ongoing matters that are unrelated to Thomas Crooks and the Butler shooting?
Of that shooter.
Well, I think that's an unfair supposition. We, the FBI, have put out all the information that we possibly and legally can while protecting any ongoing matters that are unrelated.
But he's dead.
Well, yes, he's very much dead. But at the same time, Brett, we at the FBI have to follow the parameters of our investigation and what the law allows us to release.
I get it. But, what were the cell phones? Why don't we know who he was talking to? What exactly happened? I feel like we haven't gotten the whole picture about Butler even now.
But here's the thing, Brett. We can provide, and just an example here, we've provided 40,000 pages of documents to Congress. That's
totally unrelated.
400% increase from the prior two directors.
That's very good, but totally unrelated. It doesn't answer for this.
We will continue to provide this information with our partners on Capitol Hill when we are legally able. It's never going to be enough for everyone. It's never going to be enough. But what we are saying is, we're not saying trust us. We're saying we did an exhaustive search of that. We presented that information to the Department of Justice, and a decision was made on what to release.
Yeah, but okay. Yeah, you said we put out everything we could. Do you think that everything's been put out about Eric Crump's, the shooter, alleged shooter? In
Everything,
Butler?
whether it's Epstein or Charlie Kirk, or whether it's this shooter in Butler, we always put out what the law permits us to put out.
Okay, with the law. So if we didn't do it and it came out elsewhere, it wasn't our fault. We were doing what the law permitted. I want to bring something up here just because it caught my eye, and I want to understand. Let's see here. It was in the chat. Ah, yes. Wild Arms 420. I think you are part of the distraction, Viva. What does that mean? It's like the, I don't want to use the word low level analysis because it's not analysis. What does it even mean? You're part of the distraction. What should I be focusing on that I'm not focusing on? What am I distracting from? In your view, that we can't multitask and pay attention to? The saying you're part of it's a distraction implies that you have an attention span that can only focus on one issue. And it's the type of rhetoric that adds nothing to the discourse that is itself the distraction, because look, now we're distracted from what I was talking about. But we're not, because I went on a tangent and now I'm back. That was an answer that is obviously unsatisfactory. It was visibly unsatisfactory to Brett Baier himself on Fox News, which is, I won't say the mouthpiece of the administration, but they are certainly in the favored channels of this administration. The answer is always, we put out what we're legally allowed to put out in conjunction and collaboration with our partners at the DOJ or at the state level prosecutions. And the answers just never amount to anything satisfactory. There was another one that I want to bring up. And I'm not even, I want to post it without comment because I don't want to taint anybody's interpretation of it, but everyone's going to say, Viva, I know why you're putting this out. And it's to criticize, even though you don't put out the words to criticize in it. I want to know how everybody views these questions. If you're explaining you're losing seems to be forgotten. And if you keep saying things in public press conferences that you either have to walk back or subsequently explain to temper some of the public outrage that is righteously raging because of what you said, you're also not doing yourself any favor. After the Alex Preddy shooting, and you had, an administration that people, and I say cynically, were saying was not sufficiently pro-Second Amendment because, one of the biggest complaints against Trump is that he supported the bump stock ban in the wake of the Las Vegas massacre. And some people were saying, look, it was the politically savvy thing to do at the time. I did not take it as an indication of anybody who is not supportive of Second Amendment rights, but people say it's the inch by inch, one step forward, two steps back. But they come out with statements that stir up the ire of the people who are constitutionalists in the truest sense and who value the Second Amendment above all. Second Amendment, as they say, protects the First. Listen to this question.
Let me bring you to Minnesota. There's the fallout from Minnesota, everything that's being looked at. It's obviously not in your department, but you commented on this about the firearm aspect of this in protest. Take a listen.
You cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. You don't have that right to break the law and incite violence.
So that got some response.
Sure.
U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Jeanine Pirro, said this over the weekend.
This one's slightly harder to misinterpret. Recall, Kash Patel said you don't have the right to break the law and cause incitement. Conjunctions are important, but at least I think I understand what he was saying. It's tough to misunderstand what Jeanine Pirro was saying here.
You bring a gun into the district, you mark my words, you're going to jail. I don't care if you have a license in another district, and I don't care if you're a law-abiding gun owner somewhere else. You bring a gun into this district, count on going to jail, and hope you get the gun back.
Pause it right there. We're all familiar with Dexter Taylor's case out of New York State, where he built his own firearm at home through materials that he ordered lawfully online under his own name, had delivered to his own apartment. And the judge in that case, Judge Darkey, said, don't bring in your Second Amendment rights argument into my court. The Second Amendment doesn't exist in the state of New York. And people were rightly outraged about that. So you have that statement. I won't play it again. We don't need to belabor the point.
Some people are concerned about something I said yesterday, so I want to be crystal clear. I am a proud supporter of the Second Amendment.
So all these gun rights advocates and supporters are saying, wait a second, what are you guys telecasting here?
Well, I'm glad you played the entirety of the clip because mostly nobody did that.
Exactly.
Well, I'm not sure how her saying that she supports the Second Amendment somehow attenuates or contradicts the statement that she made earlier, that if you bring a gun into her district, you're going to jail and you'll be lucky if you get your gun back. I don't know that it somehow even rectifies that gaffe.
I said you cannot bring a firearm to a public protest and incite violence. That's the kicker. President Trump's administration is the most pro-Second Amendment administration in history. All we are saying is, one, it's a question of law. Did you incite violence or commit another crime while in possession of a firearm? And if that's the case, then we're going to investigate you. But the other question is a prudential one. Should you be bringing firearms? That's not a decision for the FBI to places where people are protesting. That's a prudential decision. We will follow the facts and the law.
We will follow the facts and the law. All right. That was one. And there was another one which I posted just before going live so we can cover this. It was, where was it? Because I know that I posted two. Here we go. Kash Patel's answer on whether he regrets the way the Epstein disclosures were handled.
Bouncing around.
Listen to this one.
Bouncing around. The Epstein files, the last tranche, we're told, put out. Looking back since the beginning, and you've been a part of talking about this, and DOJ has obviously produced these elements. Do you have regrets about how it's been handled?
Look, like any other hot topic issue, the American public and the world had a great interest in this. And what we did under President Trump's leadership is produce the most transparent DOJ and FBI in history. 3 other administrations had the opportunity to do this, and we produced everything we legally and lawfully could.
Everything we legally and lawfully could. The most transparent government. Do you understand, by the way, that this is now Brett Baier of Fox News asking the questions that people who have been colloquially referred to as the black pillars have been asking for a little while. Oddly enough, by the way, by the time this trickles up to Fox News, it's because of systemic, prolonged dissatisfaction among the people. And so when people are saying, shut up, nobody cares about the Epstein files, don't, all you do is complain as though we have not also provided constructive recourse. By the time this gets to Fox News, you've got a problem. And now it's gotten to Fox News that has been bungled. And you have Kash Patel talking about the most transparent administration, while you have James O'Keefe. The other day, I posted the tweet showing that his affidavit for probable cause when the former corrupt FBI raided his home, took his phones over the Ashley Biden diary, was 100% redacted. And constructive criticism. I wasn't even putting the blame on Kash Patel. We were talking about how the people who handle FOIA requests are probably long-term holdovers, the so-called deep state, severely afflicted with Trump derangement syndrome, who are probably doing things to sabotage this administration to make it look like they're not the most transparent administration in history. Either that, or Kash Patel is okay with a 100% redacted affidavit for probable cause for a raid and a seizure on journalist James O'Keefe. But let's listen to what he has to say.
Work with our partners in Congress. We follow the statutes and the court orders, and we produce, 3 million some pages. So I think we got to the result in the right way. Could we have gotten there faster? I'm not really sure because of numerous court cases, multiple protective orders, multiple court sealings. And so now we've produced everything we can while protecting victims' rights. And
do you think
we've produced everything we can while protecting victims' rights, except for the fact that we've seen the bungle of this Epstein disclosure having named and shown images, bank information of alleged victims, to the point where their lawyers had to go in front of a judge now and force the DOJ to take back the documents, to pull them off the internet, to properly redact them. We did everything we could. We got there in the right way. You got there because the grassroots voices were saying, this isn't acceptable. We can't be told that there's nothing there. And now you get there with 3 million additional disclosures, which it wasn't the case that Pam Bondi et al. Came out and said, we've got 3 million documents, but we can't release them because of whatever. And if that were the case, then you would never have fought the bill, the Epstein Transparency Act. You would never have fought it if your excuse was, well, we're being held up by legal requirements. You pass the law and then you can disclose it. People were told, we've got the binders, it's on my desk, yada, yada. We've, now know what she says she meant by that. Then it's, oh, we're going to go in phases. And then it's, there's nothing left to disclose. There's nothing here. Move on. And if you're still talking about it, you're the problem. And then it gets to the point now where they actually pass the law after sufficient pressure from the public, from the very people who support this administration. 3 million additional documents that we were told didn't exist. And now we're being told that it was done in the proper way and in such a way as to protect the victims, when that didn't even happen in the disclosure. I mean, you couldn't bungle it even worse. What would have been the proper answer is, it didn't go as planned. We made a few key mistakes. We've learned from those mistakes. I don't know how you walk back the bungled redactions. The first time it came out, some of the redactions you could remove by putting it through PDF, Adobe, whatever. And then you have second problems of redactions which didn't redact victim information. Let's let Kash Patel finish the answer.
That it gets to some place. Does it get to some kind of charges that we don't yet know about?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. This FBI, as we'll talk about shortly, has done a record year in protecting and going after those that prey on children and sex traffic. And we have always said, as the Attorney General has always said, if there's any facts or any information about an ongoing matter, please let us know. We will fully investigate it. But I want to remind your audience, the materials that were released were from search warrants from 2007, 8, and earlier. And they were strictly confined to certain parameters by those that ran the investigation then. So that's what was collected. We, and not just my FBI, 3 other FBIs have looked into that material to see if there's any leads, to produce any investigatory leads, to prosecute anyone. And we have exhausted that, but we are always open to new information based on the release.
You told me when we last talked, this is 8 months ago when we did an interview at the FBI in Quantico, that you were convinced that Epstein killed himself in jail. Today, 8 months after that, are you still convinced?
Yes.
100%.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. That struck me. I would like to know if my human reading is finely tuned. Have I ever heard Kash Patel say yes, sir before? I'm going to look it up and see if I can find an AI answer that can sift through the internet. Yes, yes, sir. Strikes me as a peculiar way of answering that question. Okay, is that the end of it? Yeah, that was it. That's the end of it. So, my thoughts. And we've heard this, from Kash before. We're appealing to the general public. We've looked through our record. If you have any additional information, send it to us. It strikes me as being a potentially disingenuous way of saying, we know that, the Luke Rudkowskis of the world, the Jeremy from the Quarterings of the world, the Russell Brands, if you guys have any, the Vivas, obviously the general population doesn't have anything new. I say obviously to some extent, some of the victims might. But to say, here, send us your information. We've looked through our file, oddly enough, which was in the possession of the prior criminal, corrupt FBI and DOJ for 4 years. We've looked through our file. We've found nothing. But we're always open to tips from the public. First of all, no crap. I mean, everybody knows that. You got the FBI tip line for a reason. It's not something you have to reiterate. But it's something to say like, well, we're done looking. And our offer to you is one that we know that nobody can possibly accept, because you guys really, what are you going to have? Conspiracy theories. We have nothing in the files that could warrant opening investigations into others. We've looked through it, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Was this something that was disclosed the other day? So this is an email that is to Jeffrey Epstein from someone whose name is redacted. Okay. Tuesday. It looks like either March 11th or November 3rd, 2014, 7 o'clock a.m. in the morning. Someone is writing to Jeffrey Epstein saying, "Thank you for a fun night, ... Your littlest girl was a little naughty. Sent from my iPhone." I want everyone to digest that. There are multiple ways to read that. I didn't initially read it the way I subsequently not was told to, but someone raised that this could be written by two different people, two different categories of people. Initially reading that, you would think that you're looking at one of Epstein's clients who's saying, "Thank you for a fun night. Your littlest girl," in reference to the littlest girl that they provided to this particular client, "was a little naughty." And then you would have to say, well, why would they redact the name? It's a short name followed by a longer name. People are making jokes as to whose name could be 4 letters and then 5 letters or 6 or 7 letters. There's a number of, I don't say even good jokes. There's a number of possibilities. Some people are saying, okay, if you're redacting the names to protect the victims, why in the name of sweet holy hell would you be redacting the name of the person who sent this? And then some say, well, it's because it's a victim. And when you read it as though it might be drafted by an underage girl who's writing Jeffrey Epstein, that's plausible. If it's one of Epstein's sex toys, one of his victims, saying, "Thank you for a fun night. Your littlest girl," referring to herself, "was a little naughty." I don't read it that way. I don't think that that's a reasonable way of reading it, only because the victim, the child victim, would not say, "Thank you for a fun night." That's not something one of Epstein's sex-trafficked girls would say to Epstein in respect of an evening where she was trafficked to one of his clients. The only one who would say, the only category of people who would say "thank you for a fun night" are the person who was the beneficiary of the fun night and then referencing the girl that was provided to them by Jeffrey Epstein. And incidentally, if it was redacted to protect the name of the victim, then specify that in the redactions so that it's clear and understood by everybody. So that people look at that and say, oh, that's redacted to protect the name of a victim. If that's redacted to protect the name of a perp, while we're simultaneously being told, well, what can we do? This is from 2007, 2008. Oh, what's this? This is from 2014. I don't know what the statute of limitations on rape is. I think I do. I think it's 20 years in America. It might be state as well. What is the statute of limitations for rape in America? I think it goes state by state, and it's probably going to be 20 years, give or take. Let's see here. Hopefully, AI can sufficiently. There's no single statute nationwide, set state by state. All right, and what is it? Typically, at least 14 to 15 states have eliminated criminal statute of limitations entirely on sex crimes, including rape. Others range from 3 to 30 years. So we've got questions. We've got evidence that are newly released in new disclosures that don't exactly jive with the answers being given by Kash Patel to the legitimate questions being asked by Brett Baier now that the questions of the people have trickled their way up to legacy media, MSM, and the primary outlet that the Trump administration gives interviews to. I don't think Kash Patel would give me an interview, but who knows? Maybe he would. These are the questions I would ask him. This and the other questions that I've asked in respect of Butler, in respect of Kirk assassination, and in respect of the Epstein files. So that's the latest. That's where it's at. And I, again, am not being negative for the sake of being negative. These types of answers do more damage than good, especially when the answers are contradicted by past conduct and current disclosures. And so you might even be better off not doing interviews. If all you're going to say is, we're doing everything in accordance with the facts and the law, great. Just cut and paste.